We're live on a Sunday. This is the Rich Lieberman Media Pulse. Now, I've been and continue to be very hard on KCBS, which was once a legacy radio station and is now completely run amok. And I'm trying to be diplomatic. I'm being very, very kind. I doing some research. I've got a couple of texts from some radio people. I'm hesitating because I'm trying to find some reasonable mechanism or manner in which I can say something positive about this radio station, and I can't. What were the texts? Somebody in radio, a broadcast person, said, "You got to listen. It's ad after ad after ad after ad." And then when they finally do any kind of news, it's taped stuff. It's not even relevant to the day at hand, which is Sunday. Admittedly, a leisure day, but what the hell? I interrupted my research to go listen and to see if I could agree with what a couple of people texted me. And man, you want to talk about just. So I turned it on around 3 o'clock, little after 3, little after the network CBS News. And so they run these mishmash stories. They're not really stories. These group of kids, I guess, in Marin. This was the lead story after 3 o'clock on Sunday. Playing sports, and this had to have been taped because it references days that are not intact with what's going on today. That was taped. Then there was some story about transportation being at a loss because most people are working from home. That was taped. They did run one story that was pertaining to last night or today being Sunday. It was a stabbing down in the South Bay area. After that, after around 10 past the hour, and I wrote this down, and I referred to it, but I can basically attain to all this. The ad, I'm going to call it an onslaught. They wonder why people don't listen to them. You know, there used to be in the old days, you could run 4 3-minute clusters. That's 12 minutes. Oh, no longer. There is no FCC. Now, right after 10, they ran 4 minutes. 4 minutes of commercials, ads. That took them to a traffic report. Excuse me, a sports report. And I've said here, there is no reason why they ought to do sports on the weekends because they're not pertaining to the day. It's foolish for them to run sports. They didn't even give the score of the 49ers game. The 49ers played at 10 o'clock local time on Sunday. No 49ers score. What's the purpose then of running sports? You're not giving any scores. It's not sponsored. So they run this hideous report that was taped, again, for whatever reason, by the guy named Stephen Langford, who talks like this. Sounds like an idiot, I swear to God. And it's not an infliction or anything like that. That's how he sounds. Of something taped, not pertaining to what happens on Sunday. If you're gonna tune in to KCBS, you're driving around, the few people that listen to KCBS anymore because of this ad onslaught, you might want to hear a score. If you're going to run sports, KCBS, what in the hell is the purpose of doing sports without running a 49ers score? They don't do that. Okay, wait a minute. It gets funnier, maybe messier. So then they go to traffic and weather. And the anchor, I feel sorry for Pat Thurston. I really do, because I guess this is what they've laid out for her, right? So they run no scores, a sports report that is people are tuning out. Okay. They go to a traffic. There is no traffic. But even if there was, immediately after the traffic report, another 4 minutes of commercials. 4 minutes. Okay. So they come back at around 4:20, or excuse me, 3:20, and they run this interview between Thurston and some professor from Berkeley. It ran about 3 minutes of what's happening in Haiti, a country in chaos and completely, interesting topic. Not on a Sunday afternoon when nobody's hardly listening. And immediately after that 3 minutes, no news, they go to another 4 minutes of ads. They wonder why people do not listen, and they're a monopoly. So I guess in their minds, they're kind of Odyssey, fresh from bankruptcy, trying to nail every penny they can before it gets worse. Oh, it gets worse. So they run more ads. They do another traffic report of no traffic. They immediately upon that end go to, guess what? Yes, more ads. Common sense, common sense new program director at KCBS. When you're running regurgitate the little news you do, all they are regurgitated news from reporters, not even there. And I'm going to get to that in a second. More ads. And you take that down to more weather and traffic when there is no traffic, when there the weather report, and that is sponsored. Okay, that could be defensible, plausible from a business standpoint. Again, listeners basically have tuned KCBS out. A few people listen because they want to get a local traffic report. Maybe they have their car radio on. A few people that still listen to AM radio in the car. More ads. And then they come back, they'll do one news story, and then they go back. Bottom of the hour at 3:30 was the CBS hourly news. Then at about 3:32, guess what, folks? More ads. They run more basically packaged news stories that were obviously again taped and not relevant to the day at hand, which is Sunday. You know, they can run stuff from CBS. They can run interviews or something. They have Odyssey and their stupid ads about, you know, podcasts and all that would beat having to hear ad after ad after ad. Again, common sense. You're not getting listeners to listen. Admittedly, again, it's Sunday, but this is beyond embarrassing. This is sad. This is a total mess. We go more ads, more traffic when there is no traffic, weather that's repeated to 3:45. Another sports report that has no sports, no 49ers score. What is the purpose of running a sports report at 3:45 in the afternoon on a Sunday? Oh, I know, to run a pre-packaged report from that guy that talks like this, Stephen Langford, who sounds as if he is on some weird acid trip, who, guess what he is talking about? The Sharks on a Sunday night are playing New York. Can you believe this? 3:45, a minute's worth of sports. No 49ers score. And guess what? After the obligatory traffic and weather, when there is no traffic and there's very little weather, there's no weather. Oh, yes, more ads, more commercials. They come back, they do one basic regurgitated story about the MTC, Metropolitan Transportation Committee. Um, another un thoroughly bizarre, something prepackaged. It was obviously taped, right? Guess what? More commercials. Another 3 minutes of commercials, and they go to some business report, which on a Sunday is really ridiculous. That is what KCBS has become. Unbelievably embarrassing, right? And and they kept running, another traffic report at 3:57, more weather. That's part of their model. I can get that. I can plausibly take that into account. Then they run more commercials, another 2 minutes of commercials to, yes, the 4 o'clock hourly news from CBS. Over 30 minutes. And folks, I'm not even counting the time away, the traffic and weather. You can count that in. I'm talking about actual news broadcasts. It is inconceivable. Whoever plans this, whoever approves of this, right? Guess what? And at 4 o'clock, when they're teasing the next hour before the network news, top of the hour, it's the same stories that they regurgitated at 3 o'clock that are running again at 4 o'clock. Nobody listens to this shit. Nobody wants to hear 30 minutes of commercials on a Sunday, no less. You couldn't do something a little bit more creative, put it within the package, the time framework of what you have. You keep running this baseless programming when nobody is listening, and nobody's gonna listen. You want something even more embarrassing and sad? A couple of people have told me this, and I don't have to be told this. I already know. I heard about this many weeks ago. God forbid something happens of newsworthiness, ladies and gentlemen, on a weekend. KCBS has no reporter on the premises. They'd have to, if it's something big, they'd have to go page somebody or call somebody to get them from wherever they are at to go cover said news event. God forbid something happens. They have no reporters on the weekend. They have very little reporters during the week. No reporters there at the station or out and about on the weekend. So something newsworthy happens, major traffic accident. I guess they leave that to the traffic anchors. All right, possible. But what if there's a big fire? What if there's some kind of natural disaster? What if there is some news event that happens to take place on a Saturday or a Sunday? Well, guess what? Nobody's there. And this is a major market radio station. Does KNX in LA, do they have reporters on the scene in their newsroom out and about? The old days, they used to read the papers or they'd scan the local wire service, Bay City News, if something was taking place. And surely there is news. There is news. They would send a reporter on the scene to cover said news event, not at KCBS. And I'm going to continue to note all this. Why? Because it is beyond sad. It's a mess. Who is responsible for this? Who allows this to take place? Well, we don't have any money. Well, damn it. Get someone. Get a new ad. How can you get all these ads running and you don't have manpower to cover the essentials? You have to regurgitate all these non-news events and whatever you constitute as news, which isn't news, you keep repeating and repeating and repeating. It's ad nauseum. It is unbelievable. And it doesn't happen at the other state. Even the Odyssey stations, KNX, they have reporters. They operate as a legitimate news site. So damn it, get your act and ass together. It is embarrassing. I can't believe it. It's almost comical. And I listen to see why am I getting these texts on a Sunday? Why are you running bullshit sports minutia that has no relevance to the day at hand. If you're going to run sports reports, you don't give a 49ers score. What is the purpose? Maybe you could use that minute and not run another hemorrhoid ad or whatever the hell window ad. Maybe you can run legitimate news. There is news out there. Read the paper. It takes place. Although KCBS is not in the business of broadcasting news. They'd rather put people, retreads from KGO and their 15-year-old sounding reporters on the, oh, wait a minute. I'm mistaken, folks. That's right. They don't have reporters during the weekend at KCBS. They regurgitate news. They have these part-time news anchors filling in on Saturday and Sunday. It's embarrassing. It really is. And I'm going to note it. I'm glad I get these texts. I'm glad I get notice about how shitty, how awful, how incompetent, frankly, sad, embarrassing. I can go on and on and on. 3 to 4 was a mess. And guess what? It happened again at 4 o'clock. I didn't hear, but I've heard enough to know it's a repeat of every other hour during the weekend. God, I haven't even talked about the week. That's bad enough. You're running 30 minutes of ads and you wonder why your cume went from 1.4 million about 10 years ago. Now you're hovering around 100,000 is your cume. There is no excuse for this. You could perform better. You can run 4 or 5 clusters during an hour and run all the fucking ads you want to run. You're showing no respect for your own product, whatever that is. And most importantly, to your very few listeners, some of whom are loyal and they, by circumstance, by habit, they still listen because they want to know if there's news. They want to know what's taking place. They don't need to be told 4 different times about traffic and weather when there is no traffic and weather. But that's sponsored. We'll give you that, KCBS. Non-news bullshit. How about all the shit that you run that has no pertinence to the day at hand? I'm going to call you out. It needs to be noted. It needs to be put on the record of just how crappy you continue to be. And oh my God, I'm glad they brought in a new VP, a news director from Washington. So far, sir, dude, you get an F minus. You are a flunky. This shit, this crap is a total mess.